Now we end up in front of the object, the thing. To look for traces and the notion of an object that tells of actions once upon a time. And also towards the future of possible actions and interactions and uses. And this as a kind of production of narratives. This encounter with the object as the starting point of new ways to understand, using the object to understand, having access to the world.
Break with the academic way of approaching objects and approaching art.
Oh my God, what can I say about this?
You see traces of the transformation of this figure in something on display, which is very brutal.
This piece is not talking about what brought it here, and what brought it here may be a history of violence.
I was kind of shocked seeing them now here mounted on this thing.
I cannot help but misinterpret this object.
How should we speak of an object that is removed from the context?
The only ethical answer is to have a dialogue with members of the originating community.
I don't think we'd be having this conversation if that object was anything but African.
We do live in a world where the violence of displaying something, the potential violence, has to be considered in order to prevent damaging fantasies from being projected on or from it.
I'm fascinated by all of these sort of very primitivist assumptions that's being made about African arts, Africans, and how everyone else feels so guilty about it. So it went to a collection, big deal. It has another life.
Why should we always think we can only speak of this object if we know about its origin and the moment of its creation?
There are so many objects, we are not sure whether they're extremely old, whether they are fakes, whether they play with the aesthetics of history.
Stop sort of re-primitivizing African art and its peoples and its descendants.
Be mute and ignore the presence and the power, and what it causes in us just because we don't know where it was created, who created, and the basic information for an art historian to allow themselves to say anything.
We're not just looking at one thing, we're looking at two things. And maybe those things are making some kind of conversation already independently from us.
This was removed from the original community and transformed into an artwork and entered into a collection. But this work was produced as an art object, as a contemporary art object. But for 21 years, one of my efforts has been to avoid having this object in a collection.
This is the object that's been used. This is the object that's been used.
This object only let's say, functions when it's performed by whoever uses it. Since '94, this has been moving around in different countries, in different locations, to trigger performances.
Interaction.
I've never seen this, and just within the last so many minutes, my view of that is constantly changing. But object is there, right? Here. And it's actually us who is changing.